Finally, third, the alternatives. And it's very simple to say it. It's just to do the opposite of Margaret Thatcher, who coined the TINA principle. The TINA principle was, there is no alternatives. And I turned this around and said there are only alternatives. If we're going to survive globally, there's only alternatives to what we do today. First of all, and I'm not a fundamentalist, I can live with some weapons and some police forces or whatever, but we have to reduce all the baddies. Switch balances towards less violence, less direct military violence, less economic violence, structural violence, less cultural violence, and less gender violence. It is possible to move by every single individual feeling that he or she is a peace movement and want to promote nonviolence. Each one of us cannot do it alone, but we can do things together. But we have to talk about it, we have to be active for it. We have to spend as much time on these issues as the Danish people do on X Factor. I see it myself, it has some qualities. Wonderful young people, by the way, all of them not born in Denmark, fantastic. But could Politiken have as many articles about violence and non-violence and these kinds of things on its front page, on the internet version, as it has about X Factor or a TV series? We become a people of entertainment, of sports, of all kinds of, oh, no, don't destroy the dinner by talking, about warfare. Now we're having such a nice time. Now, if civilization does not mean also in between to talk about important things with each other and what it means to be human, and what moral things are and how they should be practiced, we are no longer a civilization. We are a losing corner of the world. And I don't want to see my country being a losing corner of the world, because we don't have to. And that's why Danish foreign policy should reorient itself away from submissiveness to the US, have a good relationship with the US, but not with the US military, and orient itself as much as it can the next 10 years and onwards with the BRICS countries. Develop good relations with Brazil and others, with Iran, with Russia, with China, with South Africa, with those who are going to be the future countries or regions, with a new philosophy which is not based on the military and interventionism and warfare and the sword and the Bible. That would be, the problem is that Denmark has now a party friend of the Prime Minister who is going, one man, to make a commission about the future of Denmark's foreign policy, development policy, and security politics, and trade politics. One person. Who is that one person? He's a former diplomat, educated as a lawyer at Copenhagen's University. I'm so sorry, I'm just forgetting his name. Maybe that's a kind of Freudian thing with me. He's a former ambassador to the US. And his farewell interview with Washington Post, he tells that everything he's seen in the US is great. Okay, that's fine with me. I see great things in the US too. And then he gets a question at the last. What would you, Mr. Ambassador, on leaving US, what would you recommend the Danish visitor to the US to do first to understand this country? And you know what he says? Go to the Arlington Cemetery and see how much good this country has done to the world. He's a man who's going to analyze and come up with the recommendations what Danish foreign policy, defense policy, security politics, trade policy, and development aid policy shall be the next 10 or 15 years. He is also the man who wrote the commission paper that legitimated Anders Fogh Rasmussen to participate in the occupation of Iraq. Now, this is a one-man show appointed personally by his party friend, Løkke Rasmussen, to tell us what Denmark should do in the future. I tell you, I could do it better. And 10 people around here could do it better. And any intellectual at a university could do it better. And if you put together a group of older people and younger people, men and women, born in Denmark, non-born in Denmark, and you put up a real commission, which is probably something the peace movement could do, and make it enormously more interesting and innovative, this is what Denmark chooses to do in a deep crisis of moral interventionism and rogueness. I say good luck. But be aware that if you don't act now against these kinds of things in your countries, and for those of you who are Danes in Denmark, you're going to live in a very, very problematic future. It is now you've got to put down your foot and say these things cannot go on like this. This man does not have the qualifications for telling us where Denmark shall be in 10 or 15 years from now in the world. I've written it in the excellent magazine Raison in Danish, and I've written it elsewhere. You can always go to www.transnational.org and my personal blog, and you'll find some ammunition of non-violent stuff. But this goes through without debate too, because we've never had so bad journalists in this field as we have today. Because also the media is part of the military-industrial media academic complex, also in Denmark. Even Politiken does not raise these questions. Is that a way to develop a policy in the future, asking one man with those qualifications to do it alone? And don't talk about information, because you can't rely on that newspaper anymore in this field. I have my personal experience from that one. What we need to do as alternatives is, secondly, growth of all qualities, but no more growth of quantities. There are limits to quantity, but not to quality. We can always become better. We can always do better things. But we cannot keep on consuming more and more of everything. We don't have the means to consume for the military destructive purposes in a world economy where so many people are getting poorer and poorer, and whole countries are sinking down, such as my dear, dear Burundi, which is falling out now in a new genocide that nobody wants to touch. I'm seeing it happening in front of my eyes. I get the reports every day. Nobody in the West is doing anything. Third, go up against anthropocentrism. The putting of human beings in the center of everything. We are just one in a larger creation of human beings plus everything, all other living organisms. Live in humility. Do your duty is not just to demand your rights. And stop talking about just war. Because, and that's a theory, you can go back thousands of years to it, St. Augustine, philosophers, and Walz's book, etc. Because did you ever hear about just human rights violations? Did you hear about just genocide? Did you hear about just child labor? Did you hear that there was some kind of justice in doing the wrong thing, except in one single field? Warfare. That can always be legitimated by something. By lousy philosophers and people who are paid for saying this bullshit. Until I hear just human rights violations, just torture, just child labor, just pedophilia, there should be no just war theory, and Obama and others should stop talking about it. And on my website at the Transnational Foundation, you can read an article by Mayrit Maguire that I put on, and those of you who received TFF press infos yesterday, last night, which is an appeal from a huge religious meeting in Rome to the Pope to once and for all stop talking or mentioning just war theory and work for the abolition of nuclear weapons. With this Pope, this gives me hope. Pope and hope is somehow moving in the right direction now. This is the best Pope we've ever had. Although there were some kind of problems in Argentina, I know. But that's what we should do, and who does it? Religious people, yes. Catholics, yes. Women, like the formidable Nobel Prize laureate, Mayrit Maguire, who I'm proud to say is a new member of my foundation. Wonderful woman with civil courage and a lot of knowledge that we don't have in Denmark anymore, if in Europe. Well, she's from Northern Ireland, so in Europe, yes. But, you know, the fringes. The most interesting things always happens in the fringes, somewhere at the external borders. So we need global ethics, point 4. Not a neighborhood ethics, we need a global ethics. Every human being is important. It's already there in the UN Charter, we don't practice it. A few people were killed in Brussels. Peace be upon them. At the same time, a few days later, 500 people drowned in the Mediterranean. Did you read Robert Fisk's article in The Independent saying, where are our proportions? You hardly saw it in the Western press. because refugees is something we don't want to talk about. They are no longer there. If we don't talk about them, they are not there anymore. Wonderful. Shameful as it was. We need an global ethics in which we have human duties and others have rights, and one in which we give up reciprocity. What is reciprocity? This is a typical Western idea that I do something for you, you do something for me. I pay you money for a product you have you made, and quid pro quo. Now, you can't do that with future generation. It isn't meaningful to say, what did the future generations do for me? You have to take them into account when you make a decision about the future. We have to take the not yet born into account when we make decisions. Not only some voters that we manipulated and asked marketing companies to persuade to do certain things. This is not democracy. This is the end of democracy. So drop anthropocentrism, drop reciprocity. Do things because they are good. Become a loved country. Go for Martin Luther King's The Beloved Community. Do good deeds and people will love you and nobody will use terrorism against you. You'll be respected everywhere. We are producing all these problems ourselves. At least most of them. So, finally, alternative military and alternative defense. I'm not against, because I don't want to put everybody in prison who wants some kind of military defense. So let's have some defensive military, small groups, helicopters instead of long-range fighter planes. Maybe munitions along the borders if somebody tries to invade us. But spend most of your energy on being good to the world. Do your job with development aid. Do your job with human exchanges. Invite people to come here, learn from each other in a cultural dialogue by working and educating ourselves everywhere. Send Danish children to Iran and go to school there. Do all these things that will build down enemy images that are used for later militarization and bombings. Do the good things. Do like Switzerland. Nobody will invade Switzerland. Nobody will bomb Switzerland. They do good things to the world, including protect all the black money. Now you see whether somebody would like to bomb Panama. Some would like to bomb Panama, but some would not like it to be bombed. Think of nonviolent defense, social defense, economic defense, environmental defense, civil resistance, and all the other things. There's a huge spectrum of things we could do to secure Denmark and Nordic countries and Europe. But the base thing is peace by peaceful means. Go in and be helpful. If there's a catastrophe show somewhere, that you brand yourself as the country who flew in the aid immediately, and people said, thank you, Denmark, for what you did. Nobody's thanking Denmark for the present policies. And stop talking about security politics first. And then think that that creates peace. Go the other way around and say, let's create peace first and then secure it. It takes nothing more than a little intellectual twist. Everybody talks about defense and security, meaning military today. What leads that to? It leads to more armament, more warfare, more instability and all that. Go the other way, create peace first, and then secure it with civilian and military means. Create a United Nations in Europe. Create a new United Nations. Create a local police force, a global police force that can intervene if, somebody is really a criminal, like some people actually are also in our own societies. But don't create all these huge military machines that feed upon taxpayers' money, and they pay for getting less secure. We've probably never been so insecure in Europe since 1989 as we are today. We're probably more insecure today than we were have reasons to be, than we were or felt we were in the first or old Cold War that ended in 1989. Why are we there today when we could have created a much better world? Because we've been a bunch of fools. Not we who sit here, but everybody outside these doors. Particularly those, close to Christian's boy, Andrew, in state-financed research. And state-financed researchers, I know enough researchers around the world, whom are my former colleagues, who once upon a time were idealistic about non-violence, who worked out good ideas on non-violent conflict resolution, etc. Today they defend intervention in Syria and new fighter aircraft for Denmark. No reason to mention names. If you're a Dane, you know them. So finally, abolish political parties. Do like Iran, that everybody who has a good idea can become a politician, can mobilize his own constituency and win an election. Why should we have political parties? Is anybody here who believes in political parties? Anybody here who is a member of a political party? Okay, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's a rather small fraction. My guess is that there are probably fewer members of political parties in Denmark today than there are members of Birdwatcher Society. Why the hell do we have it? I want direct democracy, and I think everybody who's not a member of a party but is a good man or a good woman should have a chance to present his or her program and what it is the person will do, build his constituency, and be voted for through the internet or on an app or an SMS or something like that. If 300 million people can vote for the best song in Europe, why the hell shouldn't we be able to vote for the best politicians? So, it's all over. I mean, I'm over. It could be misunderstood. Maybe it's all over, I don't know. I'm working a little bit more, a little longer, a few more years to see to it that it's not over. And I'm very, very enthusiastic about the long-term future. Humankind is not stupid. Humankind has compassion, ideals. There are lots of, there are millions of people around the world who are doing good things every day. But we are run and we are repressed by people who tell you day after day, you mean nothing and you should not believe that you can change anything. That's where democracy ends and dictatorship starts, and I will not contribute to that for as long as I live. And I hope that you younger guys than me will also stand up and say, this is what I want, this is what we want. We don't want these politicians if they keep on doing what they do. Don't tell me that the guys who sit in Folketinget are the best people that can be elected of the Danish population. It is what I call kakistocracy. And you can go home and see what kakistocracy is. It comes from a Greek word that means governance by the worst. How did they get into power? When so many of us do not like them to be there, and do not appreciate what they do, and do not appreciate the shame they call down upon the Danes and the Nordic communities. Sorry, but if this is politics today, I'm out of it, and I know where to influence things outside the party political system. It's going quite well. Some people hate me, and that's a good sign. And I'll end with this, and we'll always end with, every individual is potentially a peace movement. Don't sit and wait for somebody organizing it for you. Just spend as much time on these things as you do on X Factor or football, and the world will change. Thank you.